Alright guys, here we are back on NR2003. Today is going to be part 2 of our tutorial series for drivers. We're going to be talking about setups. I'm going to give you a few tips and I'm going to point out some awesome resources where you can learn about setups, a bit about the terminology and what everything means, and then I will also link and talk about some very fast setups that have been created in the past for NR2003. Now before we get started here, much like I cautioned about in episode 1 of this tutorial series, I highly recommend you get used to driving the track before you make any changes in the garage. What I recommend is going out on the default fast setup that comes with every track, getting used to the track, making sure that you can drive it well, because if you're spinning out or you're crashing a lot on the default fast setup, then a setup change is not going to help you very much. I would really recommend that you learn what's going on with the car, really pay attention, and figure out what you need to work on in the garage to make it faster. We're going to be talking about a few adjustments that are really easy to make on the default fast setup that pretty much give you free speed on any oval in the game compared to the default fast setups. Again, I do drive with a wheel, so please bear that in mind when you are adjusting. It may be a little bit of a different experience for you if you are using a controller. But yeah, these are some adjustments I like to make that honestly just make the car faster in my opinion. First and foremost, you can go lower on the front springs than a lot of the default fast setups. Basically, what this is going to do is going to allow the car to run a bit lower in the turns, going to give it more turn, make the car a bit looser. You basically want to go as low as possible without the car bottoming out. So that's going to be something that you'll have to practice with, but in my opinion, running as low as possible on the front springs is a really good way to get you some speed compared to the default fast setups. In addition, if you lower the front brake bias a little bit, I like to run a little bit lower than in the 70s. That way when you get on the brakes, you can actually generate a bit of turn with the car under braking. If you have it higher, it's going to make the car want to rotate less under braking. Lower will make the car rotate better under braking. In addition, right here, grill tape is something you always want to maximize. It's just going to make you faster overall. It'll give you more turn. It'll make you faster in a straight line. So you just want to raise it as much as you can without overheating the car. Same thing with the transmission ratios and the diff. You basically want the car to be just topping out in fourth gear without hitting the rev limiter at the end of the longest straightaway on the track. Again, that's just free speed, so you might as well optimize it because it will make you as fast as possible. And we talked a lot in the first tutorial video about managing weight transfer and how it's a balancing act when you're going through the corners. So I like to adjust the weight bias quite a bit, at least to kind of overall adjust on my chassis. Basically, more front bias is going to make your car tighter, more rear bias is going to make it looser. So I like to adjust here kind of just as an overall catch-all adjustment. Also, it is important to note that as a run goes on, you will be burning fuel, which is going to take the weight away from the back of the car and put more weight overall at the front of the car. So that means that the car will get tighter as the run goes on, in addition with the tires burning away. So you probably want to start out at the beginning of a run with a car more towards the loose side, and then know it's going to tighten up as the run goes on. In my opinion, NR2003 is notorious for the cars getting very, very tight as the run goes on. And then I wanted to share this resource with you guys. This is the Ultimate Racing Car Chassis Setup Guide and Tutorial for NR. And holy moly, it is very in-depth. It talks about literally everything. It gives you synopsises, so it kind of TLDRs it at the end of each section, gives you pictures, it explains what's actually going on, and there's no fluff here. It's all business. Awesome information right here, so I will link it down in the description. I mean, look at this. It's just, so much going on right here. And right down at the bottom, it talks about like conditions with your car and what they could possibly be, kind of a troubleshooting section. So I highly recommend if you want to learn a lot more and you're wondering what to do with the setup, that you take a look at this resource right here. It is incredible. It's probably the most comprehensive guide and no, again, like I said, no fluff here, all business throughout the guide. And then if you don't want to experiment with your own setups, you just want to get started, I highly recommend Volker Hackmann Cup setups. Just super fast guy. He was with Team Redline back in the day, I believe. And yeah, I'll link this download. It's on Smith's Den here. A lot of people say his setups are pretty loose. Loose is fast in my opinion, but if you want to adjust on them, I say take his setups and maybe move a bit of the front weight forward just to tighten it up a little bit, make it a bit easier to drive. But yeah, these are great starting spots. If I'm confused, I like to look at his setups and kind of adjust towards them and then make tweaks for my own driving style. So yeah, I would say these are great, really fast starting points, and then you can adjust on them for your own driving styles. So I know I didn't talk too in depth about every single setup change that you can make. That's because a lot of it's going to come down to personal preference. There are many adjustments you can make to address issues with a car here. Let's say you're tight into a turn. Well, there's probably about 15 things you can change to try and loosen the car up. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this. I will leave links to those resources down in the description, like I said. Great stuff right there, kind of like the old gods of NR2003 coming through for us. So if you guys are new to the channel, please consider subscribing for me. I do really appreciate you for watching. Hope these help you out, and I will see you in the next race.